trophy through force of arms. Nothing would stop him. "Watch him," he muttered to the two Death Guard legionaries standing guard on the bridge. Lesteigon glanced at Cor Galek as he descended the command dais. "I will have need of the Preacher once I return with Vulcan's body and the God weapon." All pretense of an alliance between them had vanished with the Monarchia's destruction and the death of Cor Galek's men. Lesteigon had made it known that he saw the Preacher as a tool, one he planned to use to its fullest extent, and discard if he so chose. He had no desire to let the treacherous cur take part in the assault where he could slip his grasp or betray the Death Guard. Better that the Preacher remain on board the Reaper's shroud. The craven would not try anything whilst under the 14th Legion guns. He did not have the stomach or guile for it. Lesteigon was on the verge of leaving the bridge when Cor Galek's voice stopped him. "You swore to me the Fulgurite would be mine. A bargain, you said." Lesteigon laughed, a wet gurgle emanating from his throat. "It will be, Preacher, but in service to me. That is not what we agreed." "Yes, but that is what I am offering. Unlike your demons, I cannot be so easily bound by pacts." Lesteigon left, his mocking laughter echoing in his wake. Deep engine drone and the screaming descent of drop pods penetrated through the waspish hum of the voids. In response, the Earth trembled as deeply buried mechanisms were activated by the Tech Marines. Cracks opened up in the ground, widening to chasms that became subterranean weapon silos from which macro cannons and multi-launchers emerged. Like rising leviathans, the dragon-mouthed barrels and launch tubes drooled dust and ash as they discharged salvos of missiles and super-heavy shells. Gunships daubed with Death Guard iconography fell out of the sky, aflame and broken apart. Several struck the inviolable edge of the voids and exploded again, shattering in a welter of metal across the ionized energy sphere. The earth trembled as the mountains spat their anger. Pillars of fire shot into the heavens, turning them red, and gouts of black smoke spewed down onto the plain. Through the thickening cloud, fire raptors, thunderhawks, and storm eagles tried to force a landing. Choking on the ash and cinder drawn up into its engines, a fire raptor ditched and crashed in a billowing explosion. Another lost a wing as lava spewed up from a subterranean vent and melted it off. The gunship spun and pinwheeled before colliding with another vessel struggling to see in the abject blackness. Both folded together before breaking apart as they struck the ground. Despite the odds, a Storm Eagle achieved a landing, but before it could disgorge the legionaries, a chasm opened up beneath it, swallowing the gunship and the troops aboard. As drop pods arrowed earthwards, they disappeared into vast magma trenches, or were fused shut by immense geysers of superheated steam. It was as if Nocturne sensed invaders and rose up to destroy them. Foolish was the warlord who attempted to assault a death world, even if that warlord was a legionary. On Nocturne, the salamanders held a distinct advantage, and no amount of obstinate force could truly match that. The Death Guard were learning the extent of that miscalculation, as what had at first seemed like inevitable victory became much more tenuous and potentially hard-fought. But Lesteigon would not be denied. He hadn't risen this high and climbed the ranks by giving in to adversity. Vulcan would die by his hand, even if Nocturne itself stood against him. For deadly as the world was, he knew it could not prevent the landfall of such a large force in its entirety. The Death Guard hurtled down in droves, quickly establishing a beachhead a few kilometers from the edge of the void shields. Heavy landers came in the wake of the smaller troop transports and gunships, bringing forth armored land raiders and Sikaran battle tanks. Soon the voids rippled with iridescent blooms from the sustained fire of las cannons and Heracles-pattern autocannons. The war engines began to cohere into armored battalions, rolling over rock and earth on scorched black treads, their hulls painted grey with ash. Behind the shields, the serried ranks of salamanders stood and watched. They had 3 gunships and no armor on the ground. Detachments of heavy weapons were brought up to firing slits and gaps in the ramparts, but they could not hope to stop the Death Guard's armored host, which had been joined by Cerberus and Spartan battle tanks. And at the head of the formation, Numeon saw the bulk of a Typhon siege tank. "That is a lot of armor," he said. "They'll tear the shields down with that much firepower," murmured Zetos. Already weakened by the bombardment, Numeon knew the voids would not hold for long. After they failed, the Death Guard would pulverize the Draconia's gate until it and everyone harbored within its fastness was dust. He scowled, frustrated as fate turned again. But there was still a chance. "We could try and get Vulcan out," suggested Zetos. "Take him to Prometheus." "And where then, brother?" Numeon shook his head. "No, we make our stand now, here, on Nocturne. This is our world, and we alone are its best defense. Besides, that much armor creates a lot of seismic disturbance." Zetos grunted appreciatively. "And to think I once wondered why the Legion was always so careful deploying heavy armor on Nocturne." Numeon gave a feral smile behind his snarling mask. "We won't be alone for long." As if in empathy, the mountains thundered again and found their indignation answered by what dwelled below. As the Death Guard tanks rolled inexorably onwards, the earth beneath them was split by chasms, and through disgorged smoke, something emerged from the depths. The sons and daughters of Nocturne had many names for them, just as they had many names for fire. Here, the ignorant invaders had stepped into Immolus without even realizing it. Gnarlworm, Urdrake, Basilisk, Wyvern, Drakon, Targon. The monstrous tide appeared endless. They spilled from the deep crags, fissures in the rock that had lain undisturbed for centuries. Long spits of flame from the maws of Urdrakes melted tank armor to slag, whilst gouts of incendiary gas spewed by Drakons fused battleplate and boiled the flesh of crew trapped within. Overhead, Wyverns and Targons took flight before sweeping down out of the sun to rip turrets and rend bodies. The horned Gnarlworms, largest of the beasts, charged at the heaviest armor. The thunder of their cloven hooves shook the earth with tectonic fury. Swarms of basilisks came in the wake of the Gnarlworms, crushing whatever machineries still functioned between their constricting coils. Battle cannons responded as a rapid redeployment was effected, but the thick leathern hide, bone crests, and carapace of the beasts proved inviolate against all but the most potent of the Death Guard arsenal. Crushed, gored, snapped in half, the tanks could not withstand such an onslaught. On pinioned wing, by tooth and claw, spewing fire or corrosive gas, These drakes had even challenged the will of a Primarch. They ripped out the heart of the 14th Legion war host with impunity. Numeon looked on grimly and aghast, as did every salamander. Only Ritan appeared unmoved, a statuesque sentinel awaiting an end to the incursion. "They rise for him," he uttered, without investing the words with unnecessary import. "Nocturne angers." "Merciful Vulcan," breathed Zetos, scarcely able to believe the evidence of his eyes. "Do not pity them, Zetos," said Numeon. "I do not, but I have never borne witness to such..." Words could not convey what they all saw. "Nor I." Nomus Ritan's voice rose up over the vox. "Lower all shields. We attack now." Numeon heard a click as Ritan hailed the Pyre Captain over his private vox channel. "Will you join us, Captain Numeon, and fight alongside the Fire Drakes once more?" Numeon's heart swelled with fierce pride and a desire to mete out vengeance against the Death Guard. "It would be an honor, Lord